The morning belonged to everyone else. Graduation day at Lincoln Heights High School in Portland, Oregon, arrived with the kind of bright, cloudless sky that seemed designed for photographs. Families gathering on trimmed lawns, the air thick with the scent of roses and fresh-cut grass, laughter spilling across the parking lot like champagne. Parents adjusted their children's caps, smoothed down gowns, snapped picture after picture. The world felt victorious. But inside the auditorium, tucked into a corner seat near the emergency exit, sat a girl who didn't belong to the celebration. Her name was Mia Brennan, 18 years old. Dark hair pulled into a ponytail that had loosened hours ago. Blue graduation gown draped over her shoulders like a costume she'd been forced to wear. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers knotted together, knuckles pale. She stared at the stage where the ceremony would soon begin, but her eyes weren't really seeing it. They were somewhere else. Somewhere, far away, somewhere darker. Around her, the noise climbed. Families poured in, claiming seats, waving programs, clutching bouquets wrapped in cellophane. A mother leaned over 3 rows to snap a photo of her son. A father carried a toddler on his shoulders, the child squealing with delight. Everywhere Mia looked, there were people. People who had someone. People who mattered to someone. She had no one. Her mother had promised to come. That morning, over a silent breakfast of cold cereal and stale coffee, her mother had said the words, "I'll be there." But Mia knew better. She'd heard those words before. They'd become a kind of script her mother recited whenever guilt flickered across her consciousness, a reflex with no follow-through. Her mother worked 2 jobs, one at a packaging plant on the east side, another cleaning offices downtown. She was always tired, always late, always somewhere else. And her father? He'd left when Mia was 9. No goodbye, no forwarding address. Just gone, like smoke clearing from a room. Mia sat alone. She watched a girl 3 rows ahead pose with her grandmother, both of them beaming, the grandmother's hand on the girl's cheek. She watched a boy in the aisle hug his father so hard his cap fell off. She watched it all with the hollow ache of someone standing outside a window, looking in at a life she'd never been invited to live. The ceremony was about to begin. The principal stepped to the podium. The chatter settled into whispers. Somewhere in the back, a baby cried. Mia didn't move. She just sat there, hands folded, breathing slow, her heart somewhere between numb and broken. And then, the door to her left creaked open. She glanced over, expecting a latecomer, maybe a straggler from the parking lot. Instead, she saw a man. Mid-30s, maybe. Tall, with broad shoulders and a worn expression. He wore a button-down shirt tucked into jeans, boots that looked like they'd walked a lot of miles. In his arms, he carried a little girl, maybe 4 years old, with curly brown hair and big, curious eyes. The girl clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest, its ears drooping. The man scanned the auditorium, clearly overwhelmed. There were no seats left near the front. The aisles were packed. He shifted the girl higher on his hip and started down the side aisle, moving carefully, trying not to disturb anyone. Mia turned away. It wasn't her problem. She didn't have the energy to care. But the man kept coming. He reached her row, the only one with empty seats, and paused. His eyes met hers for a brief second. He didn't smile, just nodded, a silent question. "Mind if we sit here?" Mia didn't respond. She just looked away. The man took it as permission. He lowered himself into the seat beside her, settling the little girl on his lap. The girl squirmed, adjusting the rabbit, then glanced at Mia with wide, unblinking eyes. "Hi," the girl whispered. Mia didn't answer. The ceremony began. Before we go deeper into this story, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel." The principal's voice echoed through the speakers, welcoming families, congratulating the graduating class. Mia heard it all from a distance, like static on a radio she couldn't quite tune in. She stared at the stage, her face blank, her mind somewhere else entirely. Beside her, the little girl fidgeted. The man whispered something to her, something gentle, something reassuring. The girl settled, but her eyes kept drifting back to Mia. Minutes passed. The choir sang the national anthem. The valedictorian took the stage, delivering a speech about resilience and new beginnings. Mia didn't hear a word of it. She was thinking about the empty seat beside her, the one her mother should have been sitting in. She was thinking about the promises that had dissolved like sugar in water. She was thinking about how small she felt, how invisible. Then the little girl spoke again. "Are you sad?" Mia blinked. She turned her head slowly, looking down at the child. The girl's expression was serious, her tiny brow furrowed with concern. Mia didn't know how to answer. She hadn't expected anyone to notice. She hadn't expected anyone to ask. "I'm okay," she said quietly. The girl studied her for a moment, then reached into the pocket of her dress and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of paper. She unfolded it carefully, smoothing it against her leg, then held it up. It was a crayon drawing. A stick-figure family, 2 people holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "I made this for my mommy," the girl said. "But she's not here. She's in heaven." Mia's breath caught. The man beside the girl closed his eyes briefly, his jaw tightening. He placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder, gentle but firm. "Lily," he said softly. "Not now, sweetheart." But Lily didn't stop. She looked at Mia with those big, solemn eyes and said, "Do you have a mommy?" Mia felt something crack inside her chest. She nodded, unable to speak. "Where is she?" Lily asked. Mia opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have an answer. At least, not one she wanted to say out loud. The man, Evan, she would later learn his name was, leaned forward slightly, his voice low and kind. "I'm sorry," he said to Mia. "She's going through a lot. We both are." Mia shook her head. "It's fine." But it wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. And for the first time in months she felt the weight of it, the loneliness, the grief, the anger, pressing down on her like a hand over her mouth. She turned back to the stage, blinking hard, willing herself not to cry. But the tears came anyway. The ceremony moved forward like a river that didn't care who was drowning in it. Mia sat perfectly still, her hands gripping the edges of her seat, her vision blurred. She kept her head down, hoping no one would notice. Around her, the auditorium hummed with applause and laughter, the sound of a world moving on without her. But Evan noticed. He didn't say anything, didn't reach out, didn't try to fix it. He just sat there, holding his daughter, his presence steady and quiet. And somehow that made it worse, because kindness, real kindness, was something Mia had learned not to trust. It always came with conditions. It always left. Lily shifted in her father's lap, her small hand reaching out toward Mia. She held up the drawing again, closer this time. "You can have it," Lily whispered, "if you want." Mia looked at the picture, the 2 stick figures, the bright sun, the wobbly hearts floating above their heads. It was the kind of thing a child made when they still believed the world was good. Mia's throat tightened. She shook her head. "You should keep it," she said, her voice barely audible. Lily tilted her head, confused. "But you're sad, and this makes me happy. So maybe it'll make you happy too." Evan's hand moved to his daughter's back, a soft, protective gesture. He looked at Mia, his expression unreadable. "She's got a big heart," he said quietly. "Sometimes too big." Mia wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to pull herself together. She didn't want to fall apart here. Not in front of strangers. Not in front of anyone. But Lily wasn't done. "My daddy says it's okay to be sad," she said. "He says sometimes people need to cry, like when it rains. The rain makes the flowers grow." Mia let out a breath that was half laugh, half sob. She didn't know what to say. This child, this tiny, earnest child, was offering her something Mia hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Small, fragile, but there. Evan glanced at Mia again, and this time he spoke with a gentleness that cut through everything. "Are you here alone?" he asked. Mia hesitated, then nodded. Evan didn't press. He just nodded back, his face shadowed with something that looked like understanding. Yeah, he said quietly. "I know what that's like." The names were being called now. One by one, students walked across the stage, shook hands with the principal, accepted their diplomas. Each name was met with cheers, applause, the flash of cameras. Mia heard them all, a parade of victory she didn't belong to. When her name was called, Mia Brennan, she stood slowly, mechanically, and made her way down the aisle. Her legs felt heavy. Her heart felt heavier. She climbed the stairs to the stage. The principal smiled at her, said something congratulatory that Mia didn't hear. She took the diploma, shook his hand, and walked off the other side. No one cheered. No one took a picture. The applause was polite, scattered, the kind you give out of obligation. She returned to her seat, the diploma resting in her lap like a piece of paper that meant nothing. Evan and Lily were still there. Lily looked up at her with wide eyes. "You did it," she said, her voice full of genuine excitement. Mia managed a small smile. "Yeah, I guess I did." Evan met her eyes. "Congratulations," he said. And he meant it. Mia nodded, her throat too tight to respond. The ceremony continued. More names, more applause. The world kept spinning. But something had shifted. Mia glanced at Lily, who was now coloring on the back of the program with a crayon she'd pulled from her pocket. She glanced at Evan, who sat with his arm around his daughter, his gaze distant but steady. And for the first time that day, Mia didn't feel completely alone. When the ceremony ended, the auditorium erupted into chaos. Families swarming the graduates, bouquets thrust into arms, cameras clicking, voices overlapping in a symphony of celebration. Mia stood slowly, clutching her diploma, watching the flood of people around her. She had no one to meet. No one waiting. She started toward the exit, weaving through the crowd, her head down. But then she heard a small voice behind her. "Wait!" She turned. Lily was running toward her, the crumpled drawing in her hand. Evan followed a few steps behind, his expression apologetic. Lily stopped in front of Mia, breathing hard, and held out the picture. "You forgot this," she said. Mia shook her head. "I told you, you should keep it." Lily's face fell. "But I made it for my mommy, and she's not here. So I think maybe you need it more." Mia's chest tightened. She looked at Evan, who stood a few feet back, his hands in his pockets, his eyes soft. "She's stubborn," he said, with a faint smile. "Trust me, you won't win this one." Mia looked down at Lily, at the drawing in her small, outstretched hand, and something inside her broke open. She took the picture. "Thank you," she whispered. Lily beamed. "You're welcome." Evan stepped forward, his voice gentle. "Look, I know this might sound strange, but would you want to grab a coffee or something? There's a diner a few blocks from here. Nothing fancy. Just if you don't have anywhere to be." Mia stared at him, May. She didn't know this man, didn't know his daughter, didn't know why he was offering, but she also didn't have anywhere else to go. "Okay," she said quietly. The diner was called Rosie's, a small, weathered place on the corner of 5th and Maple, with cracked vinyl booths and a neon sign that buzzed faintly in the afternoon light. It smelled like coffee and fried onions. The kind of place that had been there for decades and would probably be there for decades more. Evan held the door open for Mia and Lily, the bell above the entrance chiming softly as they stepped inside. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag that read Denise glanced up from behind the counter and waved them toward a booth near the window. They slid into the seats, Lily bouncing excitedly on the vinyl, Evan settling in across from Mia with a weary exhale. Mia sat stiffly, her hands folded on the table, her diploma tucked under her arm. She still wasn't sure why. She'd agreed to come. Denise appeared with menus and a pot of coffee, filling 2 mugs without asking. She smiled at Lily. "And what can I get you, sweetheart?" "Chocolate milk," Lily said, her eyes bright. "Coming right up." Denise disappeared, and the silence settled over the table like dust. Evan took a sip of his coffee, then set the mug down carefully. "So," he said, "congratulations again. High school graduation. That's a big deal." Mia shrugged. "Doesn't feel like it." Evan nodded slowly. "Yeah, I get that." Lily was already coloring on her paper placemat, humming to herself, oblivious to the weight in the air. Mia glanced at Evan. "Why did you invite me here?" Evan leaned back in the booth, his expression thoughtful. "Honestly, I'm not sure. I saw you sitting there alone, and I thought, I don't know, maybe you could use some company." "You don't even know me." "No," Evan said. "But I know what it's like to sit in a room full of people and feel like you're the only one there." Mia's chest tightened. She looked down at her hands. "My wife died 2 years ago," Evan said quietly. "Cancer. Lily was only 2. She doesn't remember much. But I do. I remember every hospital visit, every treatment, every time I had to tell her things were going to be okay, when I had no idea if they would be." Mia's breath hitched. She didn't know what to say. "I'm not trying to make this about me," Evan continued. "I'm just saying, I know what it's like to feel alone, even when you're surrounded by people, even when they tell you they're there for you, because most of them aren't. They mean well, but they don't stay." Mia nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "So," Evan said, "if you want to talk, I'm here. And if you don't, that's okay too. But either way, you don't have to be alone today." Before we continue, take a second and share your thoughts so far on this story below. I read every single one. Denise returned with Lily's chocolate milk and took their orders: pancakes for Lily, a burger for Evan, and a grilled cheese for Mia, though she wasn't sure she could eat. Lily sipped her milk, leaving a faint mustache on her upper lip. She looked at Mia with those big, curious eyes. "Do you have any brothers or sisters?" she asked. Mia shook her head. "No, just me." "Me too," Lily said, "but Daddy says I'm enough for both of us." Evan smiled faintly. "That's right." Lily tilted her head. "Do you live with your mommy?" Mia hesitated. "Yeah, I do." "Is she nice?" Mia's jaw tightened. She didn't know how to answer that. Her mother wasn't cruel. She wasn't abusive. She was just absent. Physically there, but emotionally 1,000 miles away. "She's busy," Mia said finally. Lily frowned. "Too busy for your graduation?" Mia looked away. "Yeah." Lily reached across the table and patted Mia's hand. "That's sad." Mia blinked hard, willing herself not to cry again. Evan cleared his throat. "Lily, maybe we should let Mia eat her food when it comes." "Okay," Lily said cheerfully, returning to her coloring. Evan looked at Mia, his voice low. "Sorry, she doesn't have a filter." "It's okay," Mia said. And somehow it was. Because Lily's honesty, her unguarded, childlike honesty, was easier to handle than the polite lies most people told. The food arrived and they ate in a quiet rhythm. Lily chattered between bites, talking about her favorite cartoons, her stuffed rabbit, the park near their apartment. Evan listened patiently, occasionally interjecting with a question or a gentle correction. Mia picked at her grilled cheese, her appetite non-existent. But she listened. And for the first time in months, she didn't feel like she was drowning. When the plates were cleared, Evan paid the bill and they stepped back outside into the late afternoon sun. The streets were quieter now, the graduation crowds dispersed, the world settling into its normal pace. Evan turned to Mia. "Do you need a ride? Home?" Mia shook her head. "I can walk. It's not far." Evan nodded. "Okay, but look, I know this is probably weird, but if you ever need to talk, or if you just need someone to sit with, I'm around. We live over on 10th Street, apartment 4B. Mia looked at him surprised. "Why would you do that?" Evan smiled sadly. "Because I've been where you are, and I remember wishing someone had done it for me." Lily tugged on Mia's sleeve. "You can come play with me and Mr. Hops," she said, holding up the stuffed rabbit. Mia felt something warm and fragile settle in her chest. She crouched down to Lily's level and smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. "Maybe I will," she said. Lily grinned. "Okay." Evan extended his hand, and Mia shook it. "Take care of yourself, Mia," he said. "You too," she said. And then they parted ways, Evan and Lily heading toward the parking lot, Mia walking down the sidewalk toward home. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely hollow. She felt seen. Mia walked the 6 blocks back to her apartment building in a kind of daze, the diploma still tucked under her arm, Lily's drawing folded carefully in her pocket. The streets were familiar, the corner store with the faded awning, the bus stop where she'd waited 1,000 mornings, the cracked sidewalk she'd memorized by heart. But today, everything felt different, lighter somehow, like the air had shifted. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, her footsteps echoing in the stairwell. When she reached the door, she paused, her hand on the knob, and took a breath. Inside, the apartment was dark. The blinds were drawn. The television flickered in the living room, casting blue light across the worn couch. Her mother sat there, still in her work uniform, her head tilted back against the cushions, eyes half closed. Mia stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her. Her mother didn't move. "Hey," Mia said quietly. "Who? Her?" Mother's eyes flicked toward her, then away. "Hey." Silence. Mia stood there, holding the diploma, waiting for something, an apology, an explanation, anything. But nothing came. "I graduated today," Mia said. Her mother nodded slowly. "I know. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. Work ran late." Mia's jaw tightened. "You said you'd be there." "I said I'd try." "That's not the same thing." Her mother sighed, a sound heavy with exhaustion. "Mia, I'm tired. Can we not do this right now?" Mia felt the anger rise in her chest, hot and sharp. But beneath it was something deeper, something that hurt too much to name. "Forget it," she said, turning toward her room. "Mia." But she was already gone, the door closing behind her with a soft click. Mia sat on the edge of her bed, the diploma resting on her lap, Lily's drawing unfolded beside her. She stared at the stick figures, the bright sun, the wobbly hearts, and felt the tears come again. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. She thought about Evan, about Lily, about the way they'd looked at her, really looked at her, like she mattered. She thought about the diner, the coffee, the small kindness of being invited to sit at a table with people who didn't owe her anything but gave her something anyway. And she thought about her mother, sitting in the dark, too tired to care. Mia wiped her eyes and pulled out her phone. She opened a new message, typed a few words, then deleted them. She didn't know what to say. Didn't know if she should say anything at all. But then she thought about Evan's words. "You don't have to be alone today." She typed again, slower this time. "Thank you for today. I really needed it." She hesitated, then added, "Can I take you up on that offer to talk sometime?" She hit send before she could change her mind. A minute passed, then 2. Then her phone buzzed. "Of course. Any time. We're here." Mia let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, things could be different. Before we go deeper, I would love to hear your point of view. Tell me what part hit you the hardest in the story, and share your thoughts in the comments. The next week passed in a blur. Mia spent her days the way she always had, working a part-time shift at a bookstore downtown, coming home to an empty apartment, scrolling through her phone in the dim light of her room. But something had changed. The hollowness that had defined her for so long felt less absolute now, like a crack had formed in the wall she'd built around herself. She thought about Evan and Lily often. Too often, maybe. She wondered if they thought about her too, or if she'd just been a passing moment in their lives, a stranger they'd shown kindness to and then forgotten. On Thursday afternoon, her phone buzzed. "Hey, it's Evan. Lily's been asking about you. We're going to the park on Saturday if you want to join us." No pressure. Mia stared at the message for a long time, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. She almost said no, almost convinced herself it was easier to stay in her routine, to keep people at a distance where they couldn't hurt her. But then she thought about Lily's smile, about the drawing, about the way Evan had said, "You don't have to be alone." She typed back, "I'd like that." Saturday arrived with a kind of quiet warmth that made everything feel possible. Mia met them at Riverside Park just after noon, the sun filtering through the trees in soft golden beams. Evan was there with Lily, who ran toward Mia the moment she saw her, arms outstretched. "You came!" Lily shouted, crashing into Mia's legs with a hug. Mia laughed, actually laughed, and crouched down to Lily's level. "Of course I did." Lily grabbed her hand. "Come on, I want to show you the swings." Evan walked over, hands in his pockets, a small smile on his face. "Hey." "Hey," Mia said. "Thanks for coming. Thanks for inviting me." They walked together toward the playground, Lily dragging Mia along with an enthusiasm that was both exhausting and contagious. They spent the next hour pushing Lily on the swings, building castles in the sandbox, chasing her around the jungle gym. Mia felt something loosen inside her, something that had been coiled tight for too long. At some point, they sat on a bench while Lily ran off to play with a group of kids near the slide. Evan leaned back, watching his daughter, his expression soft. "She likes you," he said. Mia smiled. "She's easy to like." "She doesn't trust people easily," Evan said. "Not since her mom died. But with you, I don't know. She just connected." Mia looked down at her hands. "I'm glad." Evan glanced at her. "How are you doing? Really?" Mia hesitated. "I don't know. Some days are okay, some days aren't." "Yeah," Evan said. "That sounds about right." They sat in silence for a while, watching Lily play, the sound of children's laughter filling the air. "Can I ask you something?" Mia said. "Sure." "How do you do it? How do you keep going when everything feels broken?" Evan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Honestly, I don't know. Some days I don't think I'm keeping going. Some days I'm just surviving. But then I look at her," he nodded toward Lily, "and I remember that she needs me. And that's enough. It has to be." Mia's throat tightened. "I don't have that. I don't have someone who needs me." Evan looked at her, his gaze steady. "Maybe not. But you have yourself. And that's worth something." Mia blinked hard, willing herself not to cry. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, Evan continued, but you matter, Mia. You do. And one day, you're going to look back on this and realize you were stronger than you thought. Mia nodded, unable to speak. Lily came running back, breathless and grinning. Daddy, Mia, watch this. She climbed to the top of the slide and waved at them before careening down, her laughter echoing across the park. Evan and Mia clapped, and Lily took a bow. She's something else, Mia said. Yeah, Evan said. She is. As the afternoon wore on, they walked to a nearby ice cream stand, where Lily insisted on getting a triple scoop of strawberry. Evan and Mia shared a bench while Lily sat on the grass, carefully licking her cone. So, Evan said, what's next for you? College? Work? Mia shrugged. I don't know. I got into a community college in town, but I'm not sure if I'm going. Money's tight, and my mom, she's not really supportive. Evan nodded. That's tough. But you should go, if you want to. Don't let anyone stop you. Easier said than done. True, but that doesn't make it less important. Mia looked at him. Why do you care so much? Evan smiled sadly. Because someone cared about me once, when I was at my lowest, and it made all the difference. The weeks that followed became a rhythm. Saturdays at the park, occasional dinners at Rosie's, text exchange throughout the week. Mia found herself looking forward to these moments, these small pockets of light in an otherwise dim existence. Evan never pushed her, never asked for more than she was willing to give. He just showed up, week after week, present, steady, real. And Lily, sweet, unfiltered Lily, became something like a little sister. She'd text Mia pictures of her drawings, ask her opinion on which dress to wear, beg her to come over and play. Mia's mother noticed the change. One evening, as Mia was getting ready to leave for dinner with Evan and Lily, her mother stopped her in the hallway. Who are these people? She asked. Mia turned. Friends. Her mother's eyes narrowed. You don't have friends. The word stung, but Mia didn't flinch. Well, I do now. Her mother crossed her arms. I don't like it. You don't have to. Mia. But Mia was already out the door. That night, over burgers and fries at Rosie's, Evan noticed Mia was quieter than usual. Everything okay? He asked. Mia shook her head. My mom's being difficult. About what? About you, about Lily, about me spending time with people who aren't her. Evan frowned. Does she not want you to have friends? I don't think she wants me to have anything, Mia said bitterly. She just wants me to stay home, stay small, stay out of her way. Lily looked up from her coloring. That's mean. Mia managed a small smile. Yeah, it is. Evan leaned forward. You know you don't owe her your whole life, right? Mia blinked. What? Your mom. I'm sure she loves you. But that doesn't mean you have to sacrifice everything for her. You're allowed to have your own life. Mia's chest tightened. She'd never thought of it that way before. I feel guilty, she admitted. She works so hard, and I'm all she has. That's not your fault, Evan said gently, and it's not your responsibility to fix her loneliness. Mia looked down at her plate, her eyes burning. You deserve to be happy, Mia, Evan said. Don't forget that. If you were in Mia's position, caught between loyalty to your family and your own need for connection, what would you do? Let me know in the comments. Summer turned to fall. Mia enrolled in community college, taking classes in psychology and English. She still worked at the bookstore, still lived at home, but something had shifted. She felt less trapped, less invisible. Evan and Lily remained constants in her life. They celebrated her first day of classes with cupcakes at the park. They helped her study for exams. They were there. And slowly, Mia began to believe what Evan had told her that day in the diner. She mattered. One Saturday in late September, Evan invited Mia to dinner at his apartment. It was small but cozy. Walls covered in Lily's artwork, a bookshelf overflowing with novels, a kitchen that smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Lily ran to greet Mia at the door, dragging her inside to show her a new drawing. Evan stood at the stove, stirring a pot of pasta sauce, a dish towel slung over his shoulder. "Hope you're hungry," he said. "Starving," Mia said. They ate together at a small table by the window, Lily chattering about her day at preschool, Evan asking Mia about her classes. It felt like family. Not the family Mia had been born into, but the family she'd chosen. After dinner, Lily fell asleep on the couch, curled up with Mr. Hops. Evan covered her with a blanket and joined Mia on the balcony, where they stood looking out at the city lights. "Thank you," Mia said quietly. Evan glanced at her. "For what?" "For this. For showing up. For not giving up on me." Evan smiled. "You made that easy." They stood in silence for a while, the night air cool against their skin. "You know," Evan said, "when my wife died, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd never feel okay again. But then Lily looked at me one day and said, 'Daddy, we're going to be okay, right?' And I realized I had to be, for her and for me." He turned to Mia. "You're going to be okay too, Mia. I know it doesn't feel like it yet, but you will." Mia's eyes filled with tears. "I hope so. I know so." 6 months later, Mia stood in the auditorium at Portland Community College, diploma in hand, surrounded by cheering classmates and proud families. But this time, she wasn't alone. Evan and Lily sat in the third row, clapping and cheering louder than anyone else. Lily held a sign that read, "Congratulations, Mia," in crayon, her smile as bright as the sun. After the ceremony, they met outside, and Lily threw her arms around Mia's waist. "You did it!" she shouted. Mia laughed, hugging her back. "I did." Evan stepped forward, pulling Mia into a hug. "I'm proud of you," he said. Mia's voice broke. "Thank you. For everything." "You don't have to thank me," Evan said. "You did this, all of it." They took pictures. They went to Rosie's for celebratory milkshakes. They talked and laughed and celebrated the small miracle of a girl who had once sat alone on her graduation day and now stood surrounded by people who loved her. Because that's what they were. Family. Not by blood, not by obligation, but by choice. And that's where we'll leave Mia's story for now. If this touched you, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Justice Tales. Because we're just getting started. What did you think of Mia's journey? What would you have done in her shoes? Let me know below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.